Hey Fitheads, today we talk with Maddie from ZOZOFIT, and if you are not watching, I'll describe to you what Max is wearing
If you're not watching,
is
I am sorry. I apologize.
you're missing out. He's wearing a full body spandex suit with a bunch of black and white dots all over it, specifically put in those places so that this company ZOZOFIT can get a 3D scan of his whole body from the comfort of his home with his phone quite quickly, and then you can see a mesh of what Max is digitally, which is cool because you can scan over time and see how you transform.
Yeah, it's one of the, I mean, we talk about this all the time. Like, you can only change what you measure, or you can only track what you measure. You know what I mean? Like, you
Right.
can only figure out something is improving or changing
Max,
if you what
you can't improve what you don't measure.
you can't improve what you don't measure. Yeah, that's what I said. And this thing measures, it does a 3D scan of your whole body, gives you measurements for shoulders, arms, chest, waist, hips, thighs, calves, and apparently much, much more that maybe Zozo's holding out on us.
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
They are continually developing. Oh, and you left out body fat. That's
Oh
so
yeah, body
crazy
fat.
cool. I mean, that's the number one thing that once you finally realize that you should not be looking at the scale, then you start looking at body fat. And this is a way to get that at home without radiation. How cool.
It was awesome. And you put the suit on, you feel like a superhero. So bonus.
Yeah, totally. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and we kind of pick her brain on what this is, what it's doing, and where they're headed. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Hey, Madeline, welcome.
Hi,
Is it Madeline? Madeline, did I get it right?
Madeline, but Maddie's also fine.
Okay, we'll go with Maddie. So,
That's a really
so
good
stoked
sign.
about this one.
I always have a very personal pet peeve of people who have long names and then refuse their obvious nickname. Like, I had a friend named Alexander, and I'd be like, Al, what's up, buddy? Al. And he'd be like, it's actually Alexander. And I'd be
And
like, wow, you are a fun guy. Am I right?
I mean, it's also harder too because my name, there's like two or three different ways of pronouncing it. So it could really go either way. So I figure the Maddie is the one that everyone can agree upon. So
Love that.
Siri still thinks I'm Ollie, no matter how many times it's hung out with me. I connect my headphones and they're Ollie's headphones. Okay,
Sounds like a cool guy.
yeah,
I am the
Let you borrow his
greatest.
headphones all the time.
great name.
Okay, so Max, what are you wearing? What is this?
What am I? It feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. I gotta tell you.
I have mine too. Okay, so we're chatting about Zozo suit, Zozo fit. I don't have mine on because I like it so much. I don't want to sweat in it for an hour while we podcast. And I want to keep it nice and wash it less. Because I
Mhm.
honestly thought about it.
Yeah, at least we got one representative here. I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so can you give the fit head some background on what this suit even does?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Max is wearing is called the ZOZO suit. And the ZOZO suit paired with our app called ZOZOFIT, we're able to capture a 3D model image of your body. So we do 12 images in a 360. And then from there, you can see that 3D body image and then also measurements, 10 different measurements of your body. And you can track that every time you scan. You can see if it changes, if it increases or decreases or stays the same. And then we also use those measurements to calculate your body fat percentage. So you can also track those changes as well, which is really cool.
And for everyone that's listening on audio, not on YouTube, Max looks like a black and white superhero. It is a tight spandex outfit with a bunch of the very specific looking dots on it. And I guess that's so the camera can see spatially the surface of his body.
Yeah, for the most part. So they're all, we call them fiducial dots. So they're all very unique to each suit. And so that's what we use to sort of capture and to kind of calibrate where you are to the camera. And then also from every single angle of the image, that's sort of what we do. We like take all of those 12 images and are able to capture those measurements and put them together.
It's pretty crazy that it's from your phone. You're just the thing I carry around in my pocket can do that now.
Yeah, just the back camera of your phone. That's all you need. And just 6 feet of space and, you know, good lighting. And that's it.
Yeah, I look like a giant QR code. Is that fair to say?
That is very fair to say.
Yeah, that's how I feel. It feels great. I did it last night. Yeah, your app is very, very politely informative. I felt not dumb, even though, or I felt not talked down to, even though I felt dumb when I was doing it. But yeah, so I just stood in a spot in front of my camera, and they took 12 pictures. I felt like I rotated like a little rotisserie chicken, and then after that, I had a full on body scan of shoulders, upper arm, chest, waist, hips, left, right thigh, left, right calf, body fat percentage. It's cool. It's really cool.
And what did you think?
It's crazy. It was fast.
It was really fast. It was very quick. I don't know. I felt great, and I honestly, like, I put it on. I felt like a superhero for sure. I looked like, I guess Frozone, although I don't know. There's a million different, you know, I flexed a bunch, and then my girlfriend was like, okay, you should probably start, you know, taking the photos now. And I was like, oh, right. Sure.
Yeah, there's always those few moments of when you're just wearing the suit and realizing, I think a lot of people kind of have this misconception that it's like this whole technical suit where you have to zip into it or anything like that. But it's really just polyester material. You know, it's material that you would see on leggings or in your insert layer on when you go to the gym and stuff. So it's pretty easy to use. Some people like to
and it's 2 pieces. It's not like a bodysuit thing goofiness. But it looks cohesive all at once because it's all one pattern, which is cool.
Yeah.
I have scanned twice now, so I've seen on a graph how I've changed, which is, I think, the coolest part, right? Because you could technically do all of these measurements painstakingly by hand, but then, like, to make a graph of your progress, you're right. It's just written in some notebook somewhere, and also I would never do it. Max, have you ever done actual measurements to track?
For a suit? Well, as a man, when they say, what is your suit size? You need chest, waist, hips, shoulders. You know what I mean? And so honestly, like, I know this sounds hilariously not fitness related, but getting a tux is a huge pain, and it's really annoying. And that you have to go to a tailor basically, and he, you know, does all this stuff. And now this is, I mean, I know a lot of guys, I know this is probably not like your main goal byproduct of the suit, but, you know, it'll make getting a suit a tailored suit really, really easy.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because this technology has been around for a little while, and the ZOZOSUIT has actually been around since 2018. So the first iteration of it was created for apparel. So we actually launched it in Japan with our team out there, as well as 72 countries, for custom fit apparel. So you got the suit, and the suit looked very different. It actually looked like QR codes more so than this suit did. And we would take those measurements and we would use those to actually create custom fit t-shirts and jeans, sweaters, Oxford shirts, and the like. So that was the initial intent. But then when we launched, we noticed that people were just scanning and they didn't want the apparel. They wanted the scans. So we had to sort of do that pause of, okay, interesting. Like, now we see that need. So, you know, it goes both ways. I would say there's many different applications of how you can use the ZOZOSUIT and the technology. And it's just how people sort of interpret the data and what they see.
Mhm.
You mentioned the body fat too.
Mhm.
The people on my channel may have seen I already made a video about this and compared the body fat reading I got from ZOZOSUIT to a DEXA scan, which is the industry standard, right? That one or the bod pod. I don't know which one's supposedly more accurate, but the ZOZOSUIT was 0.4% different than a DEXA scan. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
That the DEXA scan is a whole body radiation, and I had to go somewhere, and it costs a bunch of money every time I scan. And then you guys did this from my home.
Well, we're following the US Navy method, which is they don't use your weight. They basically take your measurements, and like all the measurements that we have, and there's a formula. And so that formula is like similar to like how they do the DEXA scan. So those two are sort of like one and the same. So we basically took that formula and took your scan. So as you scan and the more you see it, the more it becomes like more and closer to that DEXA.
Oh, interesting. So there was already sort of a mathematical way to do this based on all the measurements, and you guys are just making it easier through your app.
Yeah, I mean, there's like tons of ways that you can at least measure body fat percentage, or like you have the pinch test for
Sure.
some. There's the body, um, like the body scan one with like all the electrodes and stuff, or like with your the weight in the scale. But they're all pretty much taking some sort of like wavelength and then putting it into a formula for the most part, because it's kind of hard to really get like the definitive unless you're doing a DEXA of what your body fat percentage is, and really like, or really the lean mass versus your body fat too. So yeah, it's all kind of varied, and as long as it's consistent, you kind of get a good idea of where you're at over time.
Yeah, so you can see progress if you have a baseline, whether or not it's exactly precise. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so it's like if you're using the same method every time, you'll sort of see the same like trajectorial change. So if you're using the Zozo suit and using that in the method, and you're the same body, it's you in the same Zozo suit, you're seeing the same app, you kind of doing that. So it's the same sort of matchup that you're going to see. So you're going to see that progress. So it's like kind of the same if you were to use like a scale and the scale's measurements over time, and you only use the scale, you'll still see the trend. The numbers may not match up completely, but you'll still see the same exact trend in whatever your progress.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Max and I have the same bioimpedance scale in our bathroom. I'm pretty sure it's absolute garbage. It just tracks directly with my weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There is, I don't know completely their method, but I know it's sort of like the electrodes that they're kind of sending up, but it stops at a certain point in your like kind of like at your calf or to your like hip. It's for some. And then they kind of do an estimation afterwards based on your weight.
Huh.
Really interesting.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting to know that process.
Yeah.
Whatever. I think the one that we're using just has pieces of metal and then lies. It doesn't even send electricity to the.
Just kind of warms up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
So
the scan that they gave us, or the 3D model of my body,
Mm-hmm.
is that my body or is that a male uh template?
Nope, that's your body.
Really? That's me?
Yep,
what?
that's fully you.
This confirms I have reverse body dysmorphia. Because I saw this and I was like, wait a minute. I'm probably fitter than that. So that really is me. Wow, crazy. I mean, it's so cool to see it rotate. I feel bad for that we're doing so many visuals in this one, but to to see a mesh of your body all moving around is such a weird experience.
Mhm. I mean, it's also fit is relative. I think like a lot of people sort of they what they see in the mirror is pretty much not telling the full story, right? Because the 3D really shows you all angles and all aspects of your body. So you're really seeing the perspective from like at like a 45-degree angle versus a 30-degree angle and a 90-degree angle, or then just like, straightforward. So you're really seeing it in real time as you play with it, which is kind of nice.
What is the
Yeah.
largest disparity between left and right leg or arm or calf or whatever that you've seen? Are people just wildly asymmetrical?
No, not really. I mean, I think it depends on, what type of training you do, or, what is your like your goals and stuff. Like, I've seen someone who's scanned who's a tennis player, and they're a right-handed tennis player, and their like shoulder is insanely like, like this bicep or upper arm here is so much bigger by like 0.7 of an inch or so than their left arm. And that's just like, part of their trade. Like I'm sure I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure a pitcher also probably has that same sort of like differentials of their arms or so. For me myself, like I have so many ankle injuries, and like I'm rehabbing my right side of my leg, that is just like forever swollen. And always going to be different to my left at this point. So it kind of varies here and there based on, what is your regiment or what you've been working on.
Are you marketing towards a certain like pro athletes or the everyday scanner or the biohacker, or who's the target? Who's the target for this kind of suit other than me?
I mean,
And
obviously the ones that
Ali.
love data and, love to like sort of see those changes. It's definitely for people that like, there's really, because there's so many different use cases, it's really for everyone, and it's really dependent on how they want to interpret it. But for the most part, it's, people that want to look at, what they're doing, their progress and what they're doing, that the scale can't tell them what it is. The scale can only tell them so much of like their work, especially for weight loss. Like after that 2 month, when you hit that plateau, people think that they're not doing anything, no progress is being made. But then they put on the ZOZO suit and they actually start to see those incremental changes now with their shape of their body. Like even if you take away the measurements, you actually see your physical shape change. Like your body kind of changes, your shoulders start to roll back, or you feel a little bit better, and so you're kind of seeing the effects of it. So it's, those are trying to see that. It's, physical therapists, would want to do that, so, send it to their clients that are traveling, and they can do like a quick check. We have one athlete that's doing that right now, where every time he feels a little bit sore, he'll send his scan over to his trainer just while he's traveling. So that's been pretty exciting to see, like their communication that they do with each other. Um, and there's a lot of different things that kind of been coming over our table. I feel like when we were at the Fit Expo, people were already telling us what they would do or what they would like to do with it, and it was already different than what we intended, or how we were sort of marketing it at that point. So it's hard to say the one market, but for sure it's people that are interested in thinking about the next thing and thinking about how they can always transform and change and progress.
Yeah, how did the
I,
Fit Expo go?
It went great. I mean, it was our first official like public event, that people could actually like see the product in real time, kind of touch the ZOZO suit. And so a lot of people were kind of, I think the first reaction, because we had people in the ZOZO suit, was like, who are these superheroes? Like we see a lot of these like Incredibles references, which was great. That was what we wanted. Um, and then people were like watching our models doing the scans in real time. So they literally got to see someone basically doing the whole 12-point turn and saw how quick it was, and then see their scans right in front of them and interact with it. So that's been pretty exciting to see, and seeing people's reaction of like oh my gosh, this is a real body. Like this is what his body looks like, and kind of compare the two, which is really interesting. So yeah.
And how's the response been since you launched the body fat?
Oh, I feel like once we launched the body fat, that's when everyone said, "Oh, I understand," or "Whoa, this is insane." Just because I think a lot of people think of change in general and training in general around body fat and your full lean body mass. So that pretty much, I got very much excited. In fact, like right beforehand, we were already in progress of getting body fat percentage, but like once we launched, everyone said, "Are you doing body fat percentage?" And I was just really holding on, being like, "Oh, it's such a good idea. It's coming, I promise." So now to have it in the market is actually like kind of exciting. But the next thing that we did launch was goal setting. And I think that's been like the new thing that people have been really excited about, because there's always that like, what next? Or like, after I do my first scan, now what? And so now you get to like see it and evaluate it and think, okay, these are the places that I really want to focus on. So I'm going to set goals at these like points, and I'm going to track myself, and I'm going to now be motivated to do the next scan and see how close I am to that goal. And like, it's kind of like rings of an Apple Watch that you really want to, it's for that motivation. You want to close that circle, you want to close that ring in that sense. So, you want to meet that goal. So that's kind of been a nice part too, that a lot of people have been feeling very motivated about.
Yeah, to see the progress, and like I was saying on the graph. And when Max scanned, he immediately sent me a screenshot of his. So I feel like there's definitely a social aspect to this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a sharing feature too. So you can share like how your whole model looks. You can share directly to your measurements, or your body fat percentage, whatever you want to share. It's definitely shareable. Some online trainers are using it, and we're using it as part of their program with their clients. And that's how they communicate, is like sending in those measurements, and they would do that like 2-week or monthly check-in with the ZOZOSUIT and ZOZOFIT, which has been great.
Yeah, 2 weeks. So how often do you suggest scanning?
We usually say like every 2 weeks or so. Usually that's
Oh,
probably when we
wow.
start to see like that incremental change. It's up to you, and sort of like how you would like to sort of see it. If you want to like, do a full month's worth of programming and then see how that completed, or you want to see like, mid check-ins of a program or something like that. It's really up to you. But usually you start to see those like incremental changes within 2 weeks.
Well, I scanned and then I went out to a huge steak dinner and then I scanned again. Wow. Big changes. I gained an
Wait,
inch
really?
on my waist.
Hmm.
Not to brag. So I think it is important to, like you were saying earlier, to like scan under the same conditions. It's like when you're doing progress photos, you want to do like Monday morning after a regular Sunday, you know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
before breakfast every time, or after breakfast every time, or something like that. So yeah, I was very pleased with myself. I gained a full inch on my on my waist. The poor scanner was like, "What just happened?"
Yeah. Yeah, body fluctuates throughout the day. So yeah, definitely you're going to see those changes. We usually recommend that, where when you usually like, weigh yourself is usually when you would want to scan yourself as well. So kind of taking that time period. So usually it's in the mornings, or right before you go to the gym, or any times like that.
Can you measure a pump?
That was my next question. This is because I wanted to make a video where Max, you and I scan before and then do as many pump exercises as possible to get as big and bloated as possible after a workout, and then see who percentage wise gets bigger.
You know
Would it
what? We
show that
haven't
little bit?
tested it, but I'd be curious to see.
Okay. Yeah, because like when you're measuring online and saying, "Oh, my bicep is X, whatever," they always say cold. I measured cold, not after a pump. So you can tell a difference with a measuring tape. I imagine we could move the needle. We did
That's,
some
yeah.
towel polls, Max.
We visualize about a quarter of an inch. So if that pump is
Okay.
you're seeing like a quarter of an inch change, then you'll definitely see that. Um, so I don't know how
Worth an
I
experiment,
think
I
it's going
think.
with that.
Feels like one of those experiments. It's like so dumb that only we would have thought of that.
Independently.
Right, right, of course.
Hey, I'm all for people testing different ways that they can use it. So if you can do it after a pump, that'd be really interesting to see.
This might be kind
So
of a weird one, but do you know offhand how much a DEXA scan costs, or do you feel like this is that what is that what the suit is aimed to replace?
I wouldn't say it's to replace a DEXA scan. It's more so to have a a check-in for yourself and kind of something that's more accessible to a DEXA scan. Because a DEXA scan, you have to go in, you have to set an appointment, you have to find the time, you have to drive there. Whereas the ZOZO suit and ZOZO Fit, like you can take it with you anywhere. Like I'm in Austin today. Like I just flew in this morning and I have my ZOZO suit with me. So it's just easy throw into a bag, which is really nice.
because you sleep in it.
Yeah, deep down. When I'm cold, I'll put in the full stirrup. Um, but in terms of the pricing of DEXA, it can range. It depends on where you're going, but it's usually upwards to like $100 to $150 per scan,
Right.
depending on where you're going. So and it sometimes it requires insurance, sometimes it doesn't, depending on where you're going. So this is just more of an easier a way that anyone can honestly get a DEXA scan that wants one, or wants to get scanned and can get it at any time and anywhere.
More than the cost, I worry about the radiation. I didn't used to. I was getting DEXA scans every 3 months or so, and my cardiologist was like, "No, just stop doing that. It's not necessary." And she was already sending me to get, scans of my heart, so it's like that's necessary if I can avoid doing the other things, cut back on the DEXA scans. That feels like ideal.
Interesting. Yep. Well, no radiation with ZOZOFIT. Just your
Excellent.
camera.
Unless you
uh,
go try and fight crime, then who knows?
yeah. Yeah. Unless, you get bit by a spider and the
So you said to scan when you usually weigh yourself, which I am in the nude. Can we get a ZOZOFIT that works without the suit? Which also
Mm,
means that we're sending nudes into the cloud to be calculated, but still,
mm.
is there anything in the works to not even need the ZOZO suit?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that. There's been I know that people have been interested in that idea. That there's been, there has been sort of technology out in the field, and especially in apparel, where they've tried the idea of getting your measurements just from the phone with just your surroundings and just whatever you're in your normal day clothing. And they've done it for tailoring, and I would say that what they've found is that there's a lot of extra things that they have to take into account, and then a lot of human error also. So how you tilt your phone, where you are in the room, at what are you using, your front camera or your back camera. So all of those things are sort of in consideration when it comes to if there's going to be a no suit or not. But the nice thing about using the ZOZO suit is because of those dots, we're able to have those fiducials and to be able to recalibrate every time you scan. So definitely a possibility. I wouldn't say if we were to do it, it would be in a straight nude. Probably, I think that would be very questionable.
What?
But probably like, in we ask you to wear your undergarments anyways under the ZOZO suit, probably. So, similarly to for if we were to do a no suit, but you know, potentially, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I ask because the iPhone claims to know how tall I am, and I'm just standing there. So it seems like, yeah, that measurement apps through the phone are, heading in that direction.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of interesting things that are coming out of especially the front camera of phones for Android and for Apple, and kind of the aspect ratios that they're matching, and as they evolve, it actually helps us to evolve, and get things as more close to reality as possible. So it's very interesting. We're pretty much following along too with what they're providing, and trying to match that as much as possible.
Is there a phone that is best for your scans that helps you guys be the most accurate? Is it and follow-up question, is it tough to calibrate between phones?
I mean, I would say if you're for one account, use the same type of phone model, or same um brand of phone. I found this on the web. Oh, thanks, Siri. But I would say like iPhone for sure. We've been has been working very well for us. I would say after the iPhone 8. So anything later than the iPhone 8 should be great. And then we have a few Android phones that we've also been working with, and like a lot of the Google phones and Samsung. So not all of the Android models, but we're working towards to getting most of them. But if you go to our site and our FAQs, it'll actually lay out all of the models for Android that's available.
Such a weird problem. It feels like when you explain it to someone, they're explaining the product, they're like, oh yeah, of course I want that. But how are you going about like marketing it to the general public?
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty much saying it's the first ever at-home 3D body imager. It's the first time you can ever be able to see this model of yourself, and it's the first time ever that you can have a different mindset of how you want to um transform, and how you want to sort of set your goals of what you want to do next. There's always been this thing where people say like, I want to lose 20 pounds, but then you lose the 20 pounds and you don't look like what you wanted to look like, right? So or you look how you wanted to look, but you only lost 10 pounds because you actually like you got a lot, like you gained your muscle mass and you actually got fitter. So it's retraining your brain, or retraining your how you sort of see yourself, or how you want to see progress, and in a way that is a little bit more reasonable, and much more to what's actually happening to your body. So we're saying, we're giving them that support and saying like, here's something new, here's something that's easier for you to actually to measure, keep accountable, and see yourself in a much different way.
And I think it's
Yeah,
also
Max.
important to point out that you can weigh the same and look wildly different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like we've said that, me and Allie preached that. I know I feel like you've completely changed and your weight has stayed almost exactly the same. Is that right? Or within like a hair over and under. Allie weighs about 20 pounds anyway, so it's pretty easy to figure out. But
Me.
but we've said that a lot, and I feel like this is like the next iteration of like proving it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's taking the pounds out of the conversation, and like being so focused on that one number, because there's more to the story than just that one number. And, to that point of, Allie, your weight hasn't changed, but your body has changed a lot, and physically you felt differently, then like now you can prove it and you can show it and actually see those changes and feel good about that. You're making the progress that you actually want to make, and not feel so like bogged down of like, well, I feel better, but then it's still showing that I'm weighing the same. So what am I doing differently? So, yeah, it's definitely a whole different mentality for sure.
Yeah, to see progress or to feel progress and then see the exact same number on the scale is so weird. And of course, Max and I, do always preach stop looking at the scale. It's not the answer. You need different data. But it's hard because we are your target market. We are those people watching the numbers, tracking, obsessed. And so if you're not looking at the scale, then what are you doing to see progress? And I find that problem with myself even. I do weigh myself every morning, and I just started bulking. And it's so weird to look at the scale and want it to go up now, I guess. But I don't, right? I still have that mentality of up is bad. And what I really need to do is just ZOZOSUIT more often. It's been
Up
I did
is
it
bad,
2 months
zo is
apart.
good.
Yeah.
Hey, can I write that down? Can I keep that?
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
please.
Still in suits. But yeah, the every 2 weeks thing I think is going to help me, because I guess what I'm trying to say is that my brain's not going to change. I still want to track something, and so it's nice to have somewhere else to put that focus instead of the scale every morning.
And I think what would be nice too is like maybe setting a goal, like say like, if you're bulking, maybe like, you want to see that sort of differential maybe in like your biceps or your chest or something. So you want to increase the size. So like if you add, you create that goal setting of, I want to increase maybe by like half an inch, and you set that goal, then the mindset changes of like, I want to reach that goal and I want to see that circle be completed. So instead of thinking of like, oh, I'm gaining weight, or, I'm doing this thing that's opposite of what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm actually seeing something that I want to complete and I want to have that. So it's already like a whole different way of thinking of how, like, how I'm progressing and transforming.
Yes, totally. Love it. And it really is easier than it seems. The scan is so quick. I need to get my brain back into the fact that, like, yeah, just throw it on and do it pretty often too, to see that graph moving.
And I have to say a fun little fact, Max, when you said that we weren't, or how we were telling you how to instruct you. So the voice in the beginning for the tutorial is actually my voice.
I thought so.
That's awesome.
Polite but
ZOZO
firm.
Siri.
Yeah. a little politer. We tried.
So
I tried very hard.
That was great. Because you feel, well, I felt dumb-ish in this dumb, what am I doing? I don't know. And my girlfriend's coming in the living room like, oh my God. Okay. Oh, let's keep this going. And I'm like, no, she's telling me I gotta
She's telling me go to the 1 o'clock position.
Yeah, of course. I'm 1/12 of the way through here. Just hang on.
Yeah, like a pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there, you guys have that stand. You mentioned the angle of the phone matters. If I lose my stand like that, that's a big deal. You guys have calibrated precisely to that angle.
So we really calibrate to get it as close as possible to a full upright angle.
Okay.
So that's what our phone stand tries to do. But if our phone stand, you don't have it, or you're using a tripod or something like that, we will still tell you if your phone is not in the correct angle. So part of when you're doing your scan, we're checking a lot of different things before we tell you to move to each, like, take every photo. So like one of the things is like how far is the phone is onto the table? Like, can we see the bottom of your table? Like, is it showing up? Or are you pointing too high or too low? Like, we'll actually tell you to just kind of retilt your camera because maybe we can't see the bottom of your ZOZOSUIT or not.
So there are a lot of fail states that we didn't even hear about, probably, where you had to be like, "Hey, doofus, your phone's tilted." Okay.
Your phone's
And
pointing at the ceiling.
how close do you have to be at 6 feet? I definitely ished it and kind of guessed. Is that really important?
The 6 feet.
Yeah.
It's relative. We usually say 6 feet because, especially with the COVID days, I feel like people can kind of generally know what that distance is. But it really depends on where your phone is, and then also can the camera really see your full ZOZO suit. So it basically tells you the starting point of that relative 6 feet, and then will also instruct you to move either a little bit further or a little bit back, or forward, just to get the full picture or not.
Which lens are you using on the iPhone? Because there are the 3 of them, the wide 1 and 2x.
I believe we're using the 1. That is a little bit very technical.
Too technical.
No, yeah. But I would say
You're just a voice, not a programmer.
Yeah.
I'm the
I just tell
talent.
you later to just tilt it. Yeah. But I believe we use the 1. I don't quote me completely on that one, because we also use the like iPhone 8 phones and 9 phones that don't have the 2 or 3 camera.
All right. Okay.
And so we're still able to use those to capture the measurements.
I want to put tape over 2 of them and see if I get yelled at. Don't tell me.
Yeah, I'll probably yell and say, "We can't see you."
Is there a way to scan poorly? Like, what should we avoid?
Yeah, no harsh lighting is one of the big things. So you don't really want a lot of backlighting, because you don't want too much shadows behind you, because if the shadows will kind of be hard for the calibration of those images, and it might kind of, when we look at all 12 together, it'll be hard to sort of see all of them in one frame for us. But those are the sort of the 2 main things. And then consistency and lighting for each scan. So, however you did it the first time, make sure that it's kind of the same type of lighting the second and third time. So that way your measurements will stay consistent as well.
Is it worth flexing while I scan?
I would say it's up to the individual. If you're willing to stay flexed for 12 images, that's very kudos to you. But if you want to see sort of at neutral state, as it's really good. But I will say, whichever you choose, you will probably see a change in measurement. Like if you do your first scan in neutral and then your second scan in flex, we have seen like a couple of bodybuilders that did that, and it's like it's an insane how different that those 2 scans have been, because they work on like different movements to like how they retract their muscles, like especially bodybuilders, like the V cut that they have goes from one size to just like a deeper V, that we saw. So that was insane.
Ooh, Max, we got another contest. How much can you change your scan by flexing?
Yeah, I want a scan of me, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not just standing there. I want a 3D model of me with a bicep up, That's so
we
funny.
currently have it, so we know if your arms are up, so we tell you to put your arms down. So you could do the bottom flex if you wanted to, a little lower.
Nice.
But we hear a lot of things of how people want to see their 3D models now. So very interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, can we get a bicep measurement on here? Or is that, I mean, this was getting on the podcast was just a long scam for me to request things.
Oh yeah, add it to the list.
About the app. I need a head sock for sure, and I need a bicep numbers.
It's getting bigger.
My head's huge. My head barely fit through this thing, so
Giant
brains.
Yeah. So Yeah, definitely bicep we can do. There's a lot of actual measurements that we already can capture. We just haven't visualized it yet on the app. So it's more or less of like, hearing from people like you of like what they really want to see. And then we can kind of work on the best way that we can see it without, looking too cluttered at
Mm,
once. So like, even back in the day, like when we did it, the inseam and the outseams, like we still capture those measurements. We just don't show it currently in the UI. So, the more we hear from people of like specifics of what they want to see, the more we can kind of, get back to my team and kind of work on getting those in place.
yeah. Maybe you have like regular and then like glamour mode.
Glamour mode.
Yeah.
Or, when your kids growing up and you write their height
Yeah.
on the doorway, I could see parents just scanning their kids to get a precise measurement of their growth.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
A little
And
dystopian.
this may be surprising to the fit heads, but Max and I have different suit sizes. He couldn't borrow mine. How many different sizes do you have?
We currently have 12 different sizes.
Oh, wow,
So
okay.
it's all sort of like a sizing matrix and range. So it's based, we kind of use your estimated BMI. So you usually input your height and your weight. And from there, we sort of gauge, different sizings of all of our different 12 that we have sort of available. So yeah, so even two that are relatively fit, they may have the same suit or they may have two different suits depending on how you kind of fit within that range.
And there's not different ones for male or female, is there?
No.
Oh, okay. Have you seen someone transform so much that they had to get a different suit?
I haven't seen that. I would say the suit is very stretchy and it kind of
Yeah.
molds with you. So, when you first take the suit, I feel like everyone, when they first take the suit out, they always think it's not going to fit them. Like it looks too small. um,
Hmm.
or so. But then you put it on and you realize like there's a lot of give to this suit. And like the more, however you go from different ways, then it will really stretch and retract with you for sure.
The coolest part are the hand and feet stirrups. That's what makes it super superhero.
And that's how we make sure it stays smooth. It's really,
Okay.
yeah, then just, to keep it there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, where is ZOZOFIT headed? Can you give us inside info on any new launches or features or perhaps an exclusive? No.
The Zozo cloak.
No, we've got a lot of things in the works that we're working on. A lot of it is, how we visualize your change in your body. So, whether it's definite like the direct of like those measurements direct, your chest points and what you see already, or it's sort of like, arrange and sort of your whole body shape and how that moves and like kind of like the not like thermal changes but just like overall kind of a heat map of how things are evolving and having those type of
Hmm.
views. So like for someone that has like doesn't want to see measurements but they just want to see the shape, we can at least
Mm,
visualize those shape changes for from scan to scan. We're also working on, better ways for trainers to communicate with their clients that are using ZOZOFIT. So right now it's sort of individualized where everyone has to download their own app and then they have to send in their scans. But we're working on of making it more of like a like kind of like a social, not a social platform, but a platform that's able for a trainer and a client to really communicate with each other on the same space and the same plane. So that way, every time something happens, they can kind of look into it and kind of and allows the trainer to get more gritty into the details of the data as possible. So kind of figuring out that access and what that could look like. But and some, a lot of other little little things that are kind of coming down that, can't quite yet say, but, very exciting that it's coming.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. This has been interesting.
Yeah, great to have. We loved your video review, Allie.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to be invited, and it was great to talk with you guys. And Max, how has the last 50 minutes in the suit been?
I feel great. I feel really great. Yeah. I kind of just want to like run down the street in this thing and see what happens,
Yeah, I love that. I feel like a lot of people, when they first put it on, they're like insecure. They're like, oh, I don't know. And then they're in it for a little bit. And like my dad I come to his house and he's like wearing the ZOZOSUIT top because he's like cold. And he was like, well, I did a measurement earlier today and I just kind of kept it on. And I was like, all right, chill.
I might do one later. You never know. Just want to keep my options open.
It's a super subtle way to let everyone know that you're into tracking.
That's funny.
Well, thank you to the Fit Heads. If you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us out a whole lot. And thank you, Maddie. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.